very excited for today's video because, as promised, we're going to take a step away from talking about books and talk about my top 10 favorite horror movies. I even threw on my costume for you guys for the third year in a row. I'm being the demented, bloody Alice Madness Returns because I'm a very cheap grad student and I like it. So I was trying to figure out how to compile this list, and I decided that I wasn't going to mention the very popular modern horror movies because if you guys are horror fanatics, you've probably already seen them. So some of the modern popular ones I do enjoy are Insidious, The Ring, Sinister, but this video is going to be more so either A, classics that maybe you just haven't thought to go back and watch, or B, some more fantastic horror that's a bit more modern that has kind of flown under the radar. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So number 10, I'm cheating and putting two movies, and these are sort of unknown ones from the 1980s that really got me into horror. So that is The Lady in White and The Watcher in the Woods. These are both similar in that they deal with children discovering terrifying things. I kind of wanted to point this out because I know a lot of my viewers are around the same age as me, so it's possible you watched these when you were younger and forgot about them. I just kind of rediscovered them, and they are a bit cheesy now, but The Lady in White in particular, you know what scene I'm talking about. Absolutely horrifying, particularly if you're younger. Okay, at number 9, this one is a bit more comedy horror, but it is definitely pretty scary in some respects, and that is Trick or Treat. This one deals with, I think it's 3 or 4 different storylines about terrifying, disgusting, slightly funny things that are going on in this small town on Halloween night. I don't even know if this was released in theaters. I think it might have gone straight to DVD, Blu-ray, whatever, but I cannot recommend this one enough. When people say that they like watching Hocus Pocus or Halloween Town and that's what gets them in the mood for Halloween, no, it is definitely a Trick or Treat. And I should point out, I'm just putting images of the movies here, but I will list all the titles down below in the order I'm talking about them, but don't cheat and look. Actually, I don't really care. Number 8 is a fantastic film that's just came out, I want to say a year or two ago, and that is The Babadook. This was filmed, I believe, in Australia, and it tells the tale about the relationship between a mother and her young son who's quite disturbed. He's not doing well in school and acting out, and he begins to say that it's either something's under his bed or in his closet. Why am I blanking on which one of those it is? I think the character development, particularly about how you feel about the son in this movie, is fantastic. The way I feel about him within the first 20 minutes is the polar opposite about the way I feel about him in the last 20, and just seeing how the relationship between the mother and son develops, because the beginning of this movie is definitely very hard to watch emotionally, and then towards the end it's definitely much more terrifying. But out of all of these, I would say this is definitely the best modern classic. At least I think this is going to be a modern classic. At number 7 is The Loved Ones. This is another one that I think kind of flew under the radar, but I absolutely love. Granted, if you do not like gore, step away from this one. I know a lot of people enjoy Hostel and movies like that. I am in love with Eli Roth. I don't know why I like him so much, but I just don't like his movies. In my opinion, because this one could fall under more sort of the category of torture porn, and this is torture porn, if you will, that's done really well. It's about a boy in high school who refuses a girl who asks him to go out to homecoming, and then she kidnaps him. It sounds stupid, but it is so well done. I think actually, just like The Babadook, this was also filmed in Australia. When you're starting this film, the extremes it gets to at the end, you just will not believe. It's terrifying and revolting in kind of a fun way. So at number 6, I'm going to put 2 classics that I really enjoy that if you haven't seen yet, just what is wrong with you? And that is Halloween and Alien. Now, a lot of people, and I will agree, I enjoy Aliens more than I enjoyed Alien, but if these are 2 classics, particularly with strong female leads that just stand the test of time and will always be some of my top favorites. So again, if you haven't watched them yet, do it. So at number 6, this is another one where, like Trick or Treat, it just puts me in the Halloween mood, and that is Sleepy Hollow. I think this came out in the early 2000s. It has Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. This is one of those ones where I watched it so many times growing up. I don't actually know if other people consider this to be even a decent movie. It's one of those ones it's hard for me to watch objectively because I just loved it so much growing up. This is definitely my favorite Tim Burton film. It's terrifying yet fun. It's definitely my favorite take on Sleepy Hollow. At number 4, I was going to put 28 Days Later here, but I figured a lot of you guys would have seen that. So my favorite zombie film of all time is a Spanish film that is called Wreck. Now this is filmed found footage style, which I don't generally like, but I actually found this to be much more terrifying than 28 Days Later. I think they're both fantastic films in different ways, but it's about a bunch of random people living in an apartment building. A virus breaks out and they are trapped inside, and I think it's particularly interesting because you're seeing all of these very different people being forced together and to interact, but oh god. At number 3, we actually have another Spanish film in a row, and that is The Orphanage, or Orfanto. This one, I was really trying to decide whether or not to put on the list because although this is classified as horror, I think it more so just has a very disturbing, creepy tone throughout the movie with a couple random scares, but it is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and it's one that not enough people watch because it is subtitled. Please don't watch the dubbed versions of Wreck or this movie. Please just watch it with the subtitles. But The Orphanage is about a woman and her young son who move into an old orphanage, and then her son goes missing and she's out on this quest to find him. You go into this expecting it to be scary, and there definitely are some moments where I'm sure you will scream, but I have heard from other people who have said the same thing. You will not believe how powerfully this movie affects you and how much you think about it the following days or weeks you watch it. That doesn't happen often with horror movies, but this one deeply affected me. I know my mom felt the same way, and a lot of other people I see on online forums who watched it. It's one that immediately after you watch it, for the next months, you're going to want to tell people to go ahead and check it out as well. So at number 2, we're going to talk about another classic that I just had to put on here, and if you haven't seen, again, and that is The Shining. It's interesting because I know Stanley Kubrick directed this, and if you know about the whole feud between him and Stephen King, it is very different from the book, but I just adore this film so much. The cinematography, I remember watching this when I was little. I think I said this in another video, but I would always creep down the stairs slowly when my parents thought I was asleep, and then I would watch the entirety of the horror movie, whichever one they were watching, behind the couch, and then I'd pop out at the end. But I remember being so deeply disturbed when I was younger watching this, and it still terrifies me to this day. I know a lot of people find it very boring and monotonous, particularly the first hour and a half or so, but I just love it. I think it's fantastic, and if you don't enjoy it, I don't know if you can appreciate a good movie. And at number 1, I put this at number 1 because out of all the films, this is the one that genuinely terrifies me the most. It was semi-popular when it came out, and it did have a sequel, which I never saw, but I still know a ton of people who haven't seen this, and that is The Descent. It's about a bunch of female friends who get together each year after a tragedy has happened to one of them. They're very active and go off cave diving. As you would expect, something goes wrong, they become trapped and encounter some very terrifying things. No movie terrifies me more than this, and I think what's really interesting about it is the psychological aspect is handled so well with the differing personalities of these women who start off as such strong friends, to see how those friendships either stay or disintegrate as the fear intensifies. But oh god. But there you go, there are my top 10 favorite horror movies. Let me know what your favorites are. I did already ask you guys to do that, and I didn't get a chance to watch any of the ones I hadn't seen yet, but I will before next year. Also, let me know what you're being for Halloween. And oh, and on a side note, I highly recommend watching Chris Stuckman's video about what is wrong with horror movies today. Just fantastic, and he explains why movies like Ouija, Annabelle, all of those movies are just such shit, and why exactly they are, and what directors need to do to change that. So please go ahead and check that out. I will link it down below, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.